Coming up soon on Uncommon Sense, join me as I interview Jen Finke, our media specialist, to talk about what she does at the Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton. Coming up soon. Welcome to Uncommon Sense, the official podcast of the Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton. I'm Grettelyn Darkey, and I'm joined today with Jen Finke. As I said, how are you today, Jen?
Oh, I'm just ducky. How are you doing, Grettelyn?
I'm pretty good. Just to kind of warm people up here, just tell us a little bit about yourself and, what you do for the society.
Sure. Well, I am a stay-at-home mom to three wonderful boys, 5, 3, and 2. So I got my hands full. I'm married to a wonderful man, my husband Thomas, and for the society, I am a media specialist, and I am a caretaker, I guess, of donor acknowledgement in a sorts. So I guess what that means is, for the media specialist, I'm part of a wonderful team who comes up with an idea for our Lenten campaigns, our Advent campaigns, most of the things that you see on social media. I'm kind of doing behind the scenes work, designing graphics, researching quotations, writing reflections, all those things. So I'm not on social media all the time, but if you see a post with regularity, like a specific Advent or Lent campaign or something like that, I'm usually behind the scenes on that and posting. But I'm part of a team. So I work with Joe Grabowski, and in the past have worked with Nancy Brown and Noelle, she's just so wonderful. She's done the graphics. I don't do graphics very well, so that's not my deal. But I find the quotations and I make everything kind of look pretty in the emails. So that's kind of my main focus of what I do for the society. And then
I'm the big task, though.
It is. It's huge. I really enjoy it. It's there's a lot to comb through with Chesterton, but it's totally worthwhile. And I think, just to shamelessly plug here, we got the Lent campaign coming up, and so this year the theme is Mercy Triumphs, and so Joe and I were tossing around the idea of, okay, what's the theme going to be? And he said, let's do the works of mercy. And I said, oh, that's a great idea, because what we want to do, part of my job is to try to unearth this Chestertonian spirituality, like a substantial Chestertonian spirituality, because ultimately we want Chesterton to be recognized as a saint. And, he's already got the joy, that's a mark of a saint. And so many other things, but we want to unearth this substantial, grounded spirituality. And so we went with the works of mercy, and I said, yeah, that's great. So I'm researching all these quotations and trying to put them together. So our upcoming Lent campaign is going to be wonderful. Every day, people will receive a quotation of Chesterton's that we kind of stand side by side with a work of mercy. And you get to reflect on those things. And just a short snippet, and kind of the premise is pray, think, and act. And so every day you'll get a prayer intention, you'll get a scripture verse to kind of think on, and then a way to put it into action as your station in life allows. Because not all of us can act out the works of mercy, especially some of us stay-at-home moms. We can't always go visit the imprisoned or visit the sick, but I can
plenty of clothing the naked and
right, and feeding the hungry, right? Or visiting the imprisoned in timeout, so instructing the ignorant, all that stuff. That's coming up real soon, and that's the main thing that I do is the Lent and Advent campaigns.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I do want to say that we will have a link to the description in the description if you want to sign up for that Lent campaign. If you haven't done these campaigns with us before, you are in for a real treat. They are just a wonderful way to sort of springboard your spiritual journey. I have been using them for years to just give myself a way to something to reflect on in my daily prayer. I find it can be tricky, especially when you're busy and you're trying to keep up with your family. If you can give yourself 5 minutes in the morning, that's about all you need. And you read and you pray and you have something to work on for the rest of the day. So thank you for that, Jen. That's a great ministry.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is my fourth year being involved in the Lent campaigns, and it's Lent Advent campaigns, and it's definitely evolved really well over time. And I'm just very excited about the simplicity of it this year.
Mm.
It's because the works of mercy are just wonderful ways for us, not only as Catholics, but as as Christians, all Christians, to put their faith into action. It's a very simple way of Jesus telling us, okay, do this, go give somebody some food, go donate your clothes. But
if you've
it'll
ever
be a
said,
treat. I'm very
what do you
excited.
want me to do for, if you've ever said to God, what do you want me to do?
Right.
Like, this is it, right?
Here it is. Here's your sign.
Here it is.
Yep. So then the other thing that I do for the society is I am part of the donor acknowledgement team. And so just thank you, any of our donors who are listening, anyone who supports the society, even if you've clicked and added a quarter onto your purchase on the website. Thank you very much for supporting our mission. And how I acknowledge our donors is I love to write. I am a fan of handwritten letters. And so I handwrite thank you cards to anyone who supports us in that way. And that's just been a wonderful ministry because it kind of allows me to keep that personal relational ministry aspect alive in the society. And it's just been wonderful to see how it touches people's lives when I hear back from them. Thank you for your thank you. Well, oh my goodness, thanks is the highest form of gratitude. So,
yeah, I get to, I'm also in development with Jen, and I get to call people too. So while she's writing the cards, which is so appropriate for a society that celebrates a writer that's 100 years old.
Yes.
I also get to call them, and it's truly wonderful because most of the time you get someone who's expecting you to ask for more money or something, and you're saying thank you, and they're like, oh well. Oh, you're welcome.
Right. And then there's awkward silence and they're like, okay,
right.
well, thanks, bye.
But this is sort of a nice paradox of surprise that is always kind of fun.
Yes.
And it's a truly beautiful thing that we get to do here. Yeah. Awesome. So Jen, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you first encountered G.K. Chesterton?
Okay. So another shameless plug here. So this year at the Chesterton conference here in the Twin Cities, our keynote speaker is Bishop Barron. Fangirl moment. Okay. And the reason I love Chesterton is because of Aquinas, because of Bishop Barron. Bishop Barron loves St. Thomas Aquinas. And I was watching the Catholicism series way back when it came out. And he kept saying Aquinas this and Aquinas that. And, I'm like Catholic for 30 odd years. And I'm like, who is this Aquinas dude? And so I just start looking up, books about Aquinas. And Chesterton's Dumb Ox popped up. And I was like, oh, that's kind of non-threatening. It's a slim little copy. I can, polish that off. And wow, I read this and I fell in love with the saint. It's just the way that it's written is so beautiful and full of truth and just deeply touching. And that Chesterton loves Aquinas. And so because of Chesterton, I fell more deeply in love with Aquinas because my faith it's very rational. It's very intellectual. It's not very heady, but it's just intellectual. It's
that's Aquinas, though. I mean,
but it's Aquinas. I want to try to read this, right. I want to try to read the Summa Theologica for fun. Will it happen? No, but at least I try. So I read Aquinas, and I was like, okay, who's this Chesterton guy? This is great. Well, then I started trying to read his other nonfiction. The biggies like Orthodoxy and Heretics. And I'm like, oh, dude, who is this Chesterton man? Well, then I leapt over to Father Brown. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is gold. Okay, this is great. And so I kind of stuck with his fiction. I love Tremendous Trifles and things like that. And it wasn't until I started working for the society that I really got into his poetry, which, I love Chesterton's poetry. If you haven't read his poetry, you need to read it right now, and you need to read it out loud because it's amazing. So that's kind of my journey with Chesterton's writings. But my work with the society also started with a Chesterton conference back in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, where we were supposed to have Bishop Barron
Yep.
as the guest, but
Yep.
we did not, and he was broadcast, which was wonderful, and we got to see his pivotal player episode on Chesterton, which was amazing. And I walked into this conference as a total Chesterton newbie, not really having read much of anything other than those two staples. And I looked around and I was like, wow, I'm surrounded by Catholic and non-Catholic nerds. This is great. And so my husband attended with me because he's a big nerd just like me, and had read some Chesterton things, and I was trying to learn about distributism and all this other stuff. And we just met our people, and we met Emily de Rotstein. I think Alyssa Bormas was there. Everybody was there. And we actually went to one of the breakout sessions regarding Chesterton Academy because my husband is the Latin teacher, was the Latin teacher at his alma mater, and was looking to kind of get into a different position because we wanted a bigger family. And we didn't know about the Chesterton Academies. And so we went to this breakout session and we're just blown away. And so I started talking to Emily de Rotstein, who is just amazing. And she just got excited about meeting the two of us and my husband being a Latin teacher and everything. And so the door kind of closed at that point. And about a few years later, we were like definitely ready to make the move to a different, larger school setting. And we just, I don't want to say randomly, but through the Holy Spirit, contacted Chesterton Academy of the Twin Cities. And my husband was like, hey, are you looking for a Latin teacher? And they were like, actually, hey, yes, we are. Why don't you come up for an interview? And boom, 2 months later, we were moving to Minnesota.
Beautiful.
So then I got involved after we moved. Emily said, Jen, we want to use your talents. How can we use your talents for the society? And I said, Emily, I am a stay-at-home mom. I cannot come to an office. My first priority is to educate my kids and to be at home with them and to help their souls. And she said, okay, well, we want to support that. How can we help you support that? And so we brainstormed some ideas. And I think this was about 4 or so years ago, 5 years ago. And that's when we started thinking about the daily email campaigns and reaching out to all of our supporters and anyone who doesn't know about Chesterton. And so that's where it started, is with the email campaigns. Those first days of Advent and Lent were really rough for me because I had no idea what I was doing. But back then I was on a wonderful team with Nancy Brown and Noel Culbertson, and their wonderful knowledge and talents just helped usher me in and helped me do the work. And so that's kind of my whole history with the society. And so I've been around doing, the campaigns the whole time, doing social media things, starting with the donor acknowledgement. And basically
Nice.
whatever they tell me to do, I try to do within my constraints of being a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, and I will say that the society is so wonderfully supportive. I remember when I started a year ago, I mostly call people, and Emily said, and if your baby cries during the phone call, that's great. And I was like,
Yes.
what is this?
I know.
Who
I
are
was
these
like,
people?
yeah.
So there's some real practicing of what they preach. And
Yes.
yeah, I think it really bears a lot of beautiful fruit because it's a very vibrant place to work, and there's really a lot of goodness that comes out of it. Yeah, but thank you. That's wonderful. So just tell me a little bit more though about how, you said you're a convert. Tell me about your journey a little bit. And it seems like you've met Chesterton later in the journey, but how has he sort of affected your spirituality?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I think because the main part of my job is researching these quotations, and thank goodness for the Chesterton Digital Library and from all of Michael's hard work, because that has just made my job 1,000 times easier. I've been able to, since really working for the society and since I research all of these things, been able to, I guess, get a little closer to Chesterton. I really feel that we're kindred spirits in the fact that we're converts. And just his story, I think that learning his story through Nancy's book, The Woman Who Was Chesterton, through Frances's story and their story together, really just had an impact on me, especially in regards to family life and that kind of thing. And so his journey is not too far from my own. And so that's where I feel like, okay, we're all made for great and wonderful things, and we all need to use our talents to the greater glory of God. And that's what I'm doing, because that's what he did, because that's what any one of us should do, is to use our talents for the greater glory of God. I mean, obviously, some of us are better writers, some are better speakers and teachers. But I think one of the most inspiring things that I find about Chesterton in his writings is the way that he handles his opponents with clarity and charity but gentle, like, firmness. Like, he's like, I'm a mountain. I'm not going to be moved, but I'm going to listen to you blow your wind. Like, and I'm going to do it with charity and with I think it makes me think of Joe's presentation this last summer about how to have an argument without having a quarrel, how to have a debate without having a quarrel. You know, he was the master of that. And that is something that I definitely struggle with. And so because I'm such a type A personality, I'm like, well, this is my way or the highway, dang it. And so I can see him as a model of gentility, knowing the truth, but presenting it with gentility and presenting it with beauty and presenting it with joy and humor, because joy is the mark of a saint. And if you don't have a joy, then you're not going to be a saint.
Right.
So I think that, but also, like I said, my faith is very intellectual, and a lot of his stuff is too heady for me to read. I prefer his fiction and his poetry. But man, when I'm researching these quotations and I'm just looking at these snippets, and when I'm just looking at these snippets, they just hit you right to the core, and they really just make you think. Like, that's one of my favorite quotations by him that I found from an article that he wrote somewhere back when, that we published in the magazine. Think hard. Like, yes, duh. Think hard. Like, but we're in a, and that just all comes back to the spirituality of Chesterton. Is like, what we're doing here with the society, what we're doing in the schools is we're not telling people what to think. We're teaching people how to properly think. And I think,
not just to blindly consume everything that's put in front of them. Yeah.
So I think that I would just probably say that we're just kind of kindred spirits in a few different aspects. But the other thing I want to say is I love Tremendous Trifles, a piece of white chalk is my favorite story, because I love drawing or writing on brown paper with white chalk or white ink. So another
nice,
not too spiritual, but kindred spirit moment there. But I think too that just reading about Frances and Gilbert and their love for the Holy Family, their love for the Nativity, their love for children and family life, their hospitality, it's definitely a goal, that I want to be that warm and welcoming to anyone, regardless of their station in life, their faith, whatever.
Which goes back to, I think, what you said earlier about his respect for his opponents. I think he just had this immense respect for people. Like, it didn't matter who you were,
right?
What you thought, where your station was. It just didn't matter. Every child, every old person, everyone in between was treated exactly the same by him, and he just had this astounding respect for people, and so did Frances. And that just carried them through their lives in such a beautiful way. I love that about him.
I think
I strive for that.
Yes. I mean, he's got they both have such admirable qualities and marks of sainthood. But I think one of the things that I love most about him was he just kind of reminds me of a big kid. He's so
Mm-hmm.
jovial. And one of the things that I had the honor of doing at a few of the conferences was running the traveling Chesterton Museum. And so I would present artifacts from Dale's private collection. And what I loved the most were his sketches and his drawings and his little pen and ink drawings. And just, he is such an oddball with some of his sketches and his imagination and his puppet theater. Like, he would just be a great guy to be around. And I think of him as a little bit of a prankster as well. Like, he had a lot of jokes going on. And I love that.
But never at anyone's expense.
No.
That's the coolest thing is
Right.
that he was always able to have humor, but he was never laughing at anyone, which is just
and that's how
a
you
very
need to
special
do it.
quality. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I really, anything else you really want to say, Jen, about anything, Chesterton, the society, anything at all before we have to wrap up here?
Yeah. I mean, it's a dream job. I love working for the society. I love promoting the sainthood of this man who just gets it. He just gets it, and he's able to reach so many people across the board. And I am honored to comb through his words. But I especially want to say, if I hadn't said it before, if you have not read Chesterton's poetry, do. You can find it at your library. You can find it online. And you need to read it, and you need to read it out loud. Even if you hate poetry, Chesterton's going to what? He's going to convert you, okay? Because he's going to be the patron saint of converts. I love his poetry. It's just wonderful. But again, thank you to everyone who promotes Chesterton in the society, outside of the society, and everyone who supports the society. Thank you for all that you do.
Amen. I want to second all of that. And just remind you again, if you want to sign up for our Lent campaign, you can do that with the link in the description. I also want to point out that just for some name recognition, Jen mentioned Michael. That's Michael of Risha. We've interviewed him before. He is our, along with Nancy Brown, our Chesterton Library guru. Has done such wonderful work to make the Chesterton Digital Library what it is, which is an amazing resource. So thank you to him, and thank you to Joe Grabowski, our VP of Evangelization, for all that he does as well. And thank you, Jen, for all that you do. We are so grateful. Like I said, I've been using the reflections for years to just get some prayer into my life. Busy mom syndrome, and it's hard to get that time, but I can find 5 minutes to put that prayer time in and then have something through the day think about, to reflect on. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining me today. It's been really fun.
Yes, it's been a wonderful experience.
And I hope you have fun going back to your kids, and I'll go back to mine, and we'll do our thing. But thank you all as well for tuning in and listening today. Please don't forget to subscribe to Uncommon Sense, the official podcast of the Society of G.K. Chesterton. And remember, as always, Chesterton is always better with friends. Thanks so much for listening.